Hi, Caleb here with DIY Bonsai. Just a video doing some recovery work on this shore pine. I'm going to zoom in here in a minute and show you a little bit more detail, but essentially there was some wire left on from last fall, I believe, if memory serves, on the shore pine, a little bit too long, and so it's got a tremendous amount of girdling effect in this area here and down towards here. It's not so much down towards the base of the trunk, but it's pretty bad up and through about right here. And this isn't my tree, but I'm working on it for a friend. I just said I would try and see if we couldn't get something to recover on this. It's got some insects as well, so it's got a number of kind of health issues that we're going to try and deal with. So we're going to start with this wire. A couple of schools of thought on this. One is it's actually a technique for thickening the trunk on a pine, is to, embed the wire and leave it embedded, and that will eventually scar enough that it will close over the wound. That's not necessarily the technique that I would like to see in this case. So I'm actually going to try and remove the wire without damaging it further. It is going to create some damage, there's no two ways about it. I'm going to try and minimize that as we go here. So let's dive right in. So here's a little bit closer detail on the scarring. You can see right in this area, it's really, really bad. There's undercut quite a bit. Down towards the base of the tree, down here, we're looking at maybe 3/4 of an inch in thickness, and as we go up it starts to show some girdling right here, and all the way up through the rest of that is girdled. At this point right here, we're looking at least an inch in thickness, so you've got some reverse tapering happening. So yeah, some real sad scars taking place. So we're going to see if we can take them off. I'm going to be cutting the wire as much as possible, and then there's no two ways about it, it's going to be peeling it out of the hole. So stick with me in this process. All right, so I've got some wire cutters here, and some of these places I'm just not going to be able to get close enough to the wire to actually cut it without scarring the tree even further. So I'm going to start right about here and see if that's enough to get a little bit. Yeah, see, it's even digging in right here a little bit. So I might be unwrapping this a little bit, which is not good. I realize that, but I'm just not sure I can cut all of this without getting the tree even further scarred. So I'm able to get a little ways through some of this. I'm just trying to mitigate the scars as much as I can without doing further damage. All right, so that's those there, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the raffia is obviously disintegrated, which is helpful. I think from here up, I'm just going to be unwinding this out of the hole. I'm finding that, at least so far, the raffia has protected the trunk some. Kind of odd, but having the raffia in between the wire and the trunk is actually creating a bit of a channel to protect the bark. I wasn't expecting that. It gets really dicey right here, and that's a bit of a scar. I mean, obviously all this is a bit of a scar, but I'm just not going to get any leverage on this without having a bit more purchase. That was pretty bad. That spot right there, a whole bunch of bark just came off. It's quite unfortunate. I was really far in there. If this tree survives, it will have a story to tell. Other than this wrapping, I mean, we've got some yellowing and some needles. It's possible that there is some bug activity. I saw a little critter here as I was doing the intro, so maybe there's some bug activity going on. Got a couple of smaller branches that are wired that do not have scarring. So I'm going to take this wire out of the picture. At least not nearly the scarring these other ones do. Or on the trunk anyway. Take those out of the picture. And then the debate becomes, do I repot or not? The body of the soil here is largely decomposed. There's no defined granules that I can see. We'll dig down in here, but it looks to just be regular field soil. So I think repotting is going to be in the future for this tree. All right, so I'm cutting off the rest of this smaller wire here. It's just starting to bite in, so this will be easy enough to get off. I have other wire cutters, but for some reason I don't know where those are right now. So we're using these big ones, which aren't ideal, but we're getting through it. I might actually go find those other ones. All right, so I went out and found my smaller wire cutters. These are going to be better for getting in close and not damaging the tree. So that's one more large piece out. And we still got this bit here. Trying to support the tree at each bend by holding the wire with one hand while I'm untwisting with the other hand. So I'm supporting down here, moving in that direction, and then supporting down here. And as I go, trying to support so I'm minimizing the actual movement of the wire as it contacts the tree. So far that's been relatively successful. A couple of spots this is really dug in to the wire, that is, and not at all been successful at minimizing the damage. All right, so this is the last of the 4 strands. That is it for the stuff that's really truly bit in. I'll unwrap down here at the base just the tiniest bit to double check, but yeah, that is not even noticeable down here. That, I'm pretty sure, is all the wire. Just gonna go double check here. I'm gonna start pulling this raffia off just to see if I missed something. So it might be an interesting feature. We'll see. We'll see if we can make lemonade out of this. And then I think, like I said, or if I didn't say already, I think this is going to result in a repot, just because of the state of the deteriorated state of the soil is pretty clear that this needs a repot. So I don't know if you can see that, but what we've got here is just kind of a field soil. It looks to be maybe a little bit of organic material, but predominantly just dirt, garden variety dirt. A little chunk of brick or something there. So yeah, I think maybe a repot will be next, just so we can reinvigorate this, get some healthy growth out of it. Pretty sure it's been in this pot for at least 5 or 6 years, unchecked. And so it's a pretty slow growing plant. I think I mentioned that before, but it doesn't live at my house. It's not mine, but I have seen it over the last few years, and it is about the same size overall as it has been. So a little bit of cleanup here with this raffia, and then we'll repot it. So this is where some of the worst is. Let's get the back side there. So I'll point with my right in there is the worst damage, right there, and there was some down here as well, where when we peeled that up, that's down to the cadmium right there. So we'll see. Might be an interesting feature. We'll have to see how that works out. All right, on to repotting. All right, here in terms of repotting, I've got just a low plastic pot with some, film or some mesh to hold in the soil. The soil mix I've got is a pretty coarse granule that I'm using for this pine. It gets a lot of aeration, should allow lots of air to the roots, and isn't going to hold a ton of moisture, but there is still that field soil in the plant right now. So What I'm going to do is just get a little bit of this into the base, mount it up, and we're going to check the tree. I have kind of taken a peek at it before. That's what it looks like out of the pot. So not a ton of pot bound issues. This is just because it's dry, not because there are tons of root mass here. So I'm essentially going to almost slip pot this. I'm going to do a little bit of teasing out of these roots here with a chopstick in a moment, and then I'm going to take some of the surface structure off, but that's pretty much all I'm going to do. And then we're going to just put it into the pot as it sits. Breaking off a little bit of this surface stuff, getting down into this a little bit, seeing what we got. A lot of the roots on top here were from some weeds that I'm getting rid of. So just combing the top here. And we're going to leave the vast majority of this untouched. We're certainly not going to be bare rooting this. Again, the purpose here is to ensure that there's a good amount of air getting to the roots. Moving forward. Try not to put my hands in the way so you can see what we're doing. Got a very earthy fragrance here. When I was younger, my great-grandma had a greenhouse where the plants were rather dry, and it had a distinct earthy odor, and that's the smell I'm getting here. Very, very earthy with this dry, compact field soil here. So some of this is just going to have to get trimmed a little bit. I don't want there to be torn roots. We're looking for clean cuts if there are to be any. So we're going to clean that up just a touch. And cleaning that off. Same thing here. This is just bulky roots that are not doing anything to feed the plant. Just trying to cut them off. So we've got the rest of the health of the tree intact. So I'm not going to touch most of this. I might just tease this out just the tiniest bit so that they're free to move around a little bit. So I'm freeing some of this up from the pot structure, but I just want to try and essentially slip pot this without damaging anything too much. Don't want to put this into a massive state of shock. Some of this is dead, possibly dried out. All right, we're gonna pretty much call that good and then get it into this pot here. Again, not perfect, but hopefully we're gonna be able to maintain that. And it will get watered right away, and the overall health of the tree won't be too adversely affected. So that's a little bit high. We're gonna take some of that out. That should do. All right, so that's gonna hold it for a second while I get my pliers involved. Just this is a lot thicker than wire I would normally use, but it just happened to be what I've got here. And I want to get this into the ground and watered. I don't know if you can tell in the video, but this twisting is not doing anything. Oh, it's not going anywhere, at least. I have a pair of heavier pliers somewhere. I probably ran away with my smaller side cutters. That is going to have to do it. That is thick enough. It should hold it in place while these roots develop and hold it. All right, now we fill the rest of this in. So that's it. I'm gonna compact this a little bit. Make sure that that's tight in and around those new roots. Okay. All right. So that's about it for this one. I'm going to water it here in a moment, and then maybe a little bit of moss over the very top of the surface here to help with the stabilization of these surface granules. So I'll check back here in a couple weeks, maybe even a month, and let you know how this one's doing. Let's cross our fingers. Thanks for watching.